Good evening, heroes and heroines, and welcome to Practising Programming in C, where we're finishing up config Cinera parsing. So yesterday we did some stuff, and today we have some stuff to do. The first thing I think I'd like to do is, so one of the things that we got yesterday is like setting default stuff. So like setting default settings for projects. Yeah, I set project defaults. So whenever you add a new project scope, whenever you push on a new project scope, you set the project defaults. Now, I've had a bit of an idea that there might be other stuff that we'd like to set as defaults, and specifically it's well, actually, probably won't be in this file, but well, yeah, like this support Patreon, right? I'm thinking it might be nice if we just have like a default setting, a default support Patreon, that people can then use. So then when they like cite it in their thing, they can just do this, and they get the entire thing. So they get the icon, and they get the URL. The URL will automatically give them the person's name. So if if the person's ID happens to coincide with their Patreon account, then they'll automatically get that. But if they need to overwrite that, then they can just do this sort of thing. So like if that was my Patreon account, right, you could do that, and it'd overwrite it. Oops. So you get that, and you get that, and I think the icon will remain actually. So you'd automatically get this due to this. It was already set. And I think it might be nice because we're going to provide this sprite anyway. This Cinera sprite Patreon comes with Cinera, so it might be nice if we just give people this default thing, so they don't need to bother. Nobody needs to bother putting support equals Patreon, icon equals that, URL equals that in their configuration, because it will just come with the program. I think that'd be a reasonable thing to do. Currently we can't do that. Well, so we can't. Currently we don't do that. We only set project defaults in here. And I think in order to do the support, we're essentially talking about adding it at the root scope. So what I think we'd have to do, right, is actually initialize a scope tree out here. So we do, you see where it's like if there's no tree, right? The first time we call scope tokens down there, we're passing 0 as a scope tree, as the parent scope tree, right? So if there's no tree, we have to allocate it and set its type spec to be the root scope. Now, see, then the first thing that happens is that we set scope tree parent equals tree to this. So what I'm suggesting basically is that we have like an init scope tree which would perform this bit of stuff here. It would calloc it, set a type spec, and then having done that, it would just push on our default support. Right? Does that make sense? And also, rather than doing the set project defaults, just push on these things as well onto the root scope, because the project scopes will automatically just absorb these settings from the root scope. Right, so we wouldn't need any more logic down in this area where we do we wouldn't need to do this here. You simply just let it go through and merge scopes, and you'd pull in the thing automatically. I think that'd be a better way of doing it. So that's one thing I like to do. The other thing we need to do definitely is to get the person's support. So we've got to make basically. Let me just try and show what's going on here. If I just run the config thing, right? So here we go. We've got owner Miblo. Got name equals Matt Mascarenhas. This is this person here. Name equals Matt Mascarenhas. These things aren't set, right? They're not set in here, and they're not set anywhere else for Miblo. They're coming from up here, and that is because the person's scope is permeable. Permeability means that you absorb stuff from parents. This is incorrect. We can't let this happen, but we do want to allow. The reason we're doing this essentially is so that you can kind of do. Well, I mean, it's not even. Sorry, Patreon. It's kind of so we can do this and pull in the rest of the stuff, but I mean, it sort of isn't really that isn't really what it's actually doing, because we're just getting this stuff erroneously anyway. So we're not actually providing this thing here. What I think we need to do is to set the person's scope to be non-permeable, and instead say when we encounter a support scope, we should climb our parents to see if any of them contain a support equals Patreon. If they contain this, if we can get a scope, right, that matches this thing. If we can, then we probably either copy or merge it in. I'm not exactly sure which one it would be. Probably copy, actually. So we just straight up copy that scope into here, and then we just go on and continue to parse this assignment. So it could be that this thing has a opening braces like that. Oops. And then we continue to like pop those guys on as necessary, or it could just be a semicolon, in which case we just pop back up to our parent scope and continue to pass through the tokens. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that we need to do, make that non-permeable. And also I was sort of thinking about what the actual rule is here, and essentially this kind of procedure is essentially like, what we're trying to do is we're trying to describe this particular scope here in terms of its kind of like surrounding stuff, right? This is going to be a member of a non-permeable scope, which itself it's a member of a non-permeable scope, and it is also something that may be declared in the root scope. I mean, the description may be kind of. It may even be a bit looser than that. I mean, it might even simply be. Well, actually, it possibly wouldn't actually. I think it would be probably that. It would be like. Yeah, exactly what you said. It's a member of a non-permeable scope. And we can know the permeability from the parents because that'll be containing their type spec. You know, when we come in here, um, I mean, it'd probably be in here, right here. If our parent scope is not permeable, then you just escalate up through. Well, you first of all see what you're actually being provided with, which will be the pair, won't it? And it. I mean, it would kind of be an extension of this, won't it? So whereas this is doing a get scope, it would be to get scope only operates on the immediate parent. It would be like a kind of escalate up through the entire ancestry. And if we find it, then we don't set it to that. What we actually do is we copy that scope in, right? The reason that we don't set it directly to that thing up here is that we might need to change stuff within the thing here, which we can't let propagate up to this. If that makes sense. So let's go about that, and then I think if we do those two things, it was the thing that I just mentioned, getting this to be non-permeable, and this to copy from the parent's parent. It is the setting the default things, so setting like a support Patreon by default, so people don't have to do that. And also, I think I forgot yesterday to do a default query string. Well, maybe it didn't. I don't know. Fairly sure that I forgot to do that. Yeah. So if I just try to get rid of that. Yeah, query string, there's no setting for that. So I'd like to set a default query string too. So there's those two default things you'd like to set. And then if we can get onto it, then I'd like to do the error messages. So it's like, yeah, just some kind of standard style for messages, really. So yeah, that's the idea. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this thing being non-permeable first of all. Yeah, this is exactly what I've just been talking about. So this can't permit. This isn't permeable either. So having done that, we should get nothing. But if we pop back up to this, I think I will do a specific case for this. It's a bit sketch-tastic because it's going to have very similar logic to some of this. Yeah, in fact, you wouldn't need to do that, would you? You could just do it in here. So you could let... Probably from reset fields downwards. I think that would apply to both cases. This merge scopes intergenerational. Parents. So a quick gander. Does this check it is permeable? Yeah, it does. It's intergenerational, or it's permeable. Oh, and also, let me just quickly check something. I'm not sure if this is, if I broke this. Just want to double check that this is okay, because basically it's like a project called Risky contained within a project called Risky. I just want to make sure that still works. So there was Riskalanius. So there's Risky Business. Why is that still saying Risky Business? Yeah, you see, I think I might have broken that. Well, yeah, is that true? Yeah, I think it is true. There's Riskalanius. Risky 2. Yeah. Oh, well, maybe not actually. So there's the untitled Risky. And then here's the child Risky within that. Risky Business 2, which is coming through correctly. Okay, that's fine. And then Risk. Alright, that's good. So I didn't bust that. I only changed the name of that to Risky Business in its entirety, just to make it a bit easier to debug and figure out who was getting set to what. But that's nice, so that still works. So yeah. I think let's do it specifically for... Remember I said that I think there's a standard description for this thing that we're trying to... this kind of a scope that we're talking about. Right. Standard description for this. So... Right. We encounter this. We do not absorb things because it's not permeable. We set the name. We then come into this branch here, having spotted that we're on a support. Sorry, having spotted that we're on a scope. Well, a scope that's not include actually specifically because this thing up here is if the field is I don't include. Now I think the rule is sort of that the parent is not permeable and something else. But just to prevent any potential dodginess, because there could be other there could be other scopes that don't share this property. They don't share all the properties that we need, essentially. I think I'm just going to specifically say that it's just if it's a support, then we just go for it. It's just specifically for the support. It goes up to its parents and sees if it can find a support, and if it can, well, if it can find the support patron, if it can, copy it in. So pretty sure that's what it would be. Right. So what we want to be saying here I mean, it may not be that, actually. Because we're going to have to do this else as well, aren't we? So both of them are talking about searches, right? I think what we do is you say if the field ID is equal to ident support, and the way we try and find out if we've got a search is if we do this, else we do this, and then if you've got a search, then you copy that scope to this current one. But still we do need to do this kind of stuff though, don't we? Oh yeah, of course, because this else is just going to do that, and then we reset the fields. So yeah, let's just separate that a little bit. Right. Basically, it's going to be a recursive get scope call, by the way. So it's like oh yeah, there was also another thing that I wanted to change, wasn't there? I think there was this while loop that I was doing, in which I was checking some stuff. I think it was to do with the family variable. So going into a while loop and then checking the if while there's a parent. But I was thinking I should do like a bit of a preamble, just do an if before the while, and then kind of just switch the stuff within the while. So I appreciate that it's a little bit weird that we're checking if field ID is added port in two different places. But I think we're safe to do that. Let's just see if it crashes first of all. Doesn't crash. And it seems to do exactly what we want it to do, doesn't it? So that's that sorted. Yeah, that does seem to be fine. Don't think it's affected anything else adversely. Yeah. Home page equals nothing. Alright. I think that's now done what we wanted to do. And like I say, let's just double check this. Can you actually just overwrite it and say yes you can. So yeah, I think we've just nailed it. Not sure if there's a way to actually make this a bit more succinct. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just don't think there is actually. Not what I could see. Because it's like, what you want to do is you want to first of all do a search for something in two different ways. And then having performed that search, you want to see if you actually found something. And you want to do different behaviour depending on what you found. Or depending on what you were looking for. So yeah, let's go with that. That thing I mentioned to do with the family variable. Let's just do this quickly. Yeah, you can see this while loop is containing an if. So basically what I'd rather do is I think I'd rather push a string onto our environment. Sorry, push a string onto our thing first. So I think it's like if scope id key is equal to ident we're definitely going to have a scope, aren't we? I mean, I guess we could just check that too. If that and that. Then we push that string on. And then we say this. Well, actually, we need to set that as well, don't we? I think that's more like what you'd want to do. So you're pushing on the value of that ID, that scope's ID, and then setting the scope to be equal to the scope to its parent. So if we still have a scope, and that scope's ID is an ident project, then you want to push a slash push on a slash, push on the scope ID value of our new scope, and then try setting the scope to be the scope's parent. And then you continue to do this while loop, while that, and I think that's better. So now you're not checking again in the while, you've got the little preamble if beforehand. So with a bit of luck, we should just see the hero array pops out the same again. Yeah, we do. Yeah, I feel a bit more better about that. So, now that we've got that out of the way, I guess we could also take a look at this, couldn't we? You see the config after all. Well, this is taking resolve variables. So yeah, we do need to take that config because it's the config that contains the book. Yeah, we're doing that. Okay, the owner's information. So an owner can only occur when the project anyway. So I suppose we could also check that, couldn't we? It wouldn't be here either, would it? That would be checking that the owner exists. Would it? Or I guess it's if the owner's set, isn't it? I don't know, dude. I think we could just get away without bothering. Because essentially what we're talking about here is if somebody's done something like this. So we got Mabel Array because we set the title to there. But if we didn't have an owner set, you just get nothing. I just kind of think that let's just see what it would look like, because this is probably something we're going to do today. Oh, right, yeah. Just don't print the config for now. No insert, yeah, so... I mean, it wouldn't hurt, would it? To just inform the user about that. I mean, we kind of respect it out, so we might as well do it. Let's just config warning, just so I can actually kind of find this kind of thing. Config error. Have we got any other warnings? We haven't. So I guess call it config error, but it's actually a warning. If you know what I mean. I mean, I guess tell you what. There we go. So I can see that that's a warning. This print C is just a generic thing. I want to change it to be an actual like error function. So it's going to have an actual standard way that it does these things. Now, unfortunately, though, I've just realised I don't think I've got the file name at this point, have I? Yeah, I've lost the file names. So unfortunately, I won't be able to do this. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I suppose it's just one of those things, isn't it? If you're going to be erroring out when you get down to this stage. Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. If we can cross it at all. And instead go into print config and it's resolve variable. So it's just before resolve variable. It's just before scope tokens actually. So scope tokens, right? As I was saying before, we want to have a way to set defaults for the root scope, which by its nature means that we must pass a scope into scope tokens, or at least we must have a scope tree available to us to actually push those defaults onto. And we can't do it in scope tokens because scope tokens gets called by itself. Every time we need to add a new file, we call scope tokens, and we don't want to be like, for each file, like, also bearing in mind that once you've set one of these up, each subsequent call to scope tokens is going to pass an actual tree to scope to itself. It's going to pass this tree to the thing. So I don't think we'd have a way to distinguish between whether it's the first run or not. I mean, we could give us some more information. We could just sort of say, yes, it's the first run. But I think it'd be smarter to just do it in advance. There's another thing I'd also like to do, which is do an init book, basically, so that the pen can be reset. Let's do that after we've done this. So, I mean, we could maybe do an init scope token, init scope call. No, rather than doing it just like out here. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt at all to just do this. And that should just work, shouldn't it? So then before doing the scope tokens, we just do like set defaults. What does the set predicate defaults function need to take? It just takes the parent. So it doesn't need to take anything else like the type specs or anything. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I guess we just trust that we know what we're doing. I guess that's what's happening there. So what we want to do is we want to push on a scope that is a support scope Patreon. So basically we want to be creating this thing here, except without all this bullshit. it's the actual real thing. So in order to do that, we need a config pair patron support patron. Oh no, it's a scope, sorry. So it's a scope tree, isn't it? So the ID key then we need a way to actually get into that scope, so we want to say I suppose also you can just call it root, can't you, because you know you're talking about a tree. So we need to get into the thing. We need to get in so that we can actually add add these strings to it. And then we need to say the support. So we need the icon and the URL, basically. Let us write it all out, because I think I'd like to add a support for sendowl as well, because we also are going to provide an icon for sendowl. Can't provide a URL for it because that could be anything you want. So let's just do this. It's also worth bearing in mind that this could actually probably be lofted out into a function, but let's just continue. Let's not get too bogged down in it. Let me just also just double check that what a scope tree actually contains. So it's an ID. It's the ID key, yeah. And the config pair is a key and value. So right, so here we want. So the key is ID and icon. Push the pair onto the support. Okay, then we want the same thing for the URL. Oh, right. Jesus, really? Fully nailed down the title list stuff. Yeah, that's a good old to do. It's so funny, like, it's how often you find that this implicit declaration of function, whatever, is like two function. It's like just right below where you are. Ah, right, of course. So you do just push it as a pair. Config, yeah, it's config pair, isn't it? Then this doesn't happen. Do we do the... We did do all the rest of the stuff as well. So we're pushing... So we're doing the support Patreon. Getting the Patreon scope, so we're pushing the scope for the support Patreon. I suppose we could call this scope out the ID, couldn't we? And then the support Patreon scope would just be that. So I don't think we've got anyone anywhere, have we? So where's handmade array? Let's make me the owner. We've already got me up here declared, so I've got the support equals Patreon. And yeah, that's just come through as exactly as we'd like it to come through. And also the other things, the support, the numbering scheme, update interval, and log level. The log level would previously have been emergency. The update interval wouldn't have been set. And the numbering scheme would have been calendrical. So yeah, that's all coming through. Let's just do the query string. That was another thing we wanted. Query string is currently set to nothing, yep. And it's still set to nothing. But it isn't anymore. So that's the query string. Let's now add, in the same way that we added this whole thing for support Patreon, let's do one for support send owl. Now we don't have anything. Now let's just say, for the sake of argument, that I've got a support send owl Do I get anything through? I do get something through, so we get Cinera, right, send out.png. Doesn't have a URL, but I happen to know that my send-out thing is available at .co.uk/Cinera pledge is the URL for that. And I think also this should list a syntax error. Yeah. I don't know whether I should actually did write that, didn't I? So that didn't work. Let me just double check, does this work? Aha, it doesn't. So I did the merging slightly wrong, didn't I? So what I was doing was, first of all, come in and if you see that somebody's got that thing set, oh really? Ah, oh, I see. Okay, fine. I think maybe we don't set it, do we? That's kind of an interesting question, actually. Oh yeah, this is gonna have to be freaked either way, isn't it? That's unfortunate. No, we are handling it, aren't we? Because if scope tokens has to capitulate, then it will free. If we've still got a scope tree by this point, then we'll go ahead and resolve the variables, and then we'll free the scope tokens. So I think we're okay. guess stepping in, just see what's going on. See why we never get to set the URLs for this guy. I think that was working, wasn't it, at the start of the stream? Yeah, like this medium run name in application, that all now works, doesn't it? We need to go, maybe the array is still there. Yeah, in application, so all of the riskies are getting in application. So that's probably coming through. Yeah, just step through, see what's going on. So we're at the root scope here. I think the case that we're looking at is when we're inside the person scope. So this one that we're talking about here is going to be this support equals PayPal, isn't it? Well, actually, yeah, it will be this, because we're setting the Patreon one in the default the default setting thing, which isn't this function here. So this should be the support PayPal. Let's just take a look at the pair. Yeah, PayPal Sprite support. Yeah. So let's continue through, because I think we're okay with that. Continue to the next version, and the next time we encounter this support Patreon, it should be within the person mid-below. Yeah, ident person and mid-below. So we've encountered this. I'm looking to see if we can get a scope. We're looking to find a scope with ident support key and the value of Patreon. So let's see what we can come up with. I guess actually we could just go through, couldn't we, until we see this if search. I'm pretty confident actually that we are finding it as well. I think we're going to get into this case, so I think we really need to be getting through this whole thing and just seeing where we go from there. This probably will get the scope. So the parent is still the person. We're copying scope to the parent. The search. Search nowadays for Patreon. It's got 2 pairs. So when we step over this, the parent should become this search, although it's going to not be at the actual location. It's going to be a new lead thingamajig one. Right, so that search is currently there. When we step over this, the parent should be set. It will match, it will look the same as search. But it won't be at this location. Yeah, so it's not at that location. But you can see it's adding support Patreon. 2 pairs. We haven't set the type spec. Not sure if that's significant, but we don't do it. It's going to have to happen. Yeah, surely this has got to happen. Push the scope on. Well, we do. This type spec is the source type spec. Unless we just need to do a set type spec. So the source type spec. Yeah, it's a bit odd that just totally hasn't taken effect. So this type spec's got ID in person, there's 3 fields in it. This P search, ident support, Patreon's got no fields. Oh, I know why. It's because when we initialize it, we don't set the type spec. So those, yeah, that set default thing is going to have to take the type specs. So you want to push the scope on. How does this usually get used? Alright, get type specs. Let's see if that's any better. Yeah, now we get something through. Send out we don't get through though, unfortunately, because we haven't set the type spec for that send out. Okay, now we get it through. Cool. That was the beauty of stepping through that and identifying that the type spec wasn't set and knowing that that was incorrect. Just kind of spotting that that wasn't what you... It was an unusual thing. Maybe push scope actually should do that. You know, just as a matter of course, after pushing a scope, it sets the type spec for it. The only place that's not doing that is here. I mean, another way to talk about this also, you know, we're pushing a scope on. When you push a scope, you're actually setting the ID. So you could like set type spec itself, because you're operating on a scope, right? The scope has an ID key, and the ID key is the same thing as the field ID. So I think I didn't really fully yeah, you can see it, the type spec ID is equal to the spec ID. Hold on. Well, I suppose what I'm driving at is set type spec itself could just call get type spec, and it could call type spec get type spec on this value. Right? It's just, well, let's just leave that as it was and just look at the set defaults one. So where we do the set defaults, and this is doing the set type spec, you see this here, passing ident support, we're setting the support ID key to that thing, right? when we push a scope on, remember that this is the support ID key. We've got to set the support patrons, so the thing that we're returning. We're basically talking about where is the ID key used, if at all, if anywhere. And it's being used here. It's been set to that. Yeah, it's setting the ID to that. Why are we bothering to if on it? Because if you haven't got an ID, you can't do anything, can you? Was that just a bit of a faux pas? Right, we're setting the ID here. So what I'm basically proposing is set type spec. Right, and we're using the ID key. I suppose the push scope doesn't take the type spec, does it? Which doesn't have to be a problem because everybody who calls push scope, everybody who calls push scope is going to have the type specs available to them. So we should be able to just take the type specs. I hadn't realised that. Episode 1689 is a square number. It's probably my least favourite square number as well, because I'm not a fan of number 13. That might be why I didn't realise it. Also, I was sort of saying, set type spec itself, right? It could just conceivably call get type spec, right? Because we're setting the type spec for a parent. And if it's push scope that's setting the type spec, sorry, if it's push scope that's calling the set type spec, that is going to have set the ID, and it's the ID that we need to get this piece of information. So I think that we are completely entitled to relieve this set type spec call of taking the get type spec thing. Right. We instead do this. Right. Set type spec then comes in, and that can do the get type spec. So it's kind of funny that the set type spec doesn't take the type specs, but that doesn't matter. We've got the scope tree. It's the types. So rather than doing the spec ID, I guess what we're doing is we're saying config type spec is equal to get type spec. Type specs. Get type specs is going to be the types. The types key. Sorry, the types ID key. That is what we'll be talking about, right? So this is going to have to take the type specs. I like how it's like type, specs, spec. It's kind of handy that get type specs is straight above get type spec. This also returns 0 if it fails to find it. But I don't think anywhere that we're actually using it we encounter that situation, do we? So I think we're kind of safe-ish, if you like. So those guys are doing their thing. It needs to take the yeah, it's nearly taking the type spec, so we need to pass that through. Get type spec already takes the type specs. It takes the ID key. So this should, I think, be okay. It's kind of nice to just mark directly for the field count, so there's no wastage. This will need to push scope, right? This is going to have to take the type specs. Did take the second argument inside. So it wants to take the type specs and the spec. No, it doesn't. Because we get the type specs from the specs. So then we just need to, whenever we call push scope, we just need to pass the type specs as the first argument. Copy scope doesn't say that, doesn't it? Fine. Which one did we say? Push scope takes as the first argument. Then we shouldn't need to do this. Copy scope calls. Merge scopes doesn't take the type specs. Jesus. I think we're in scope tokens here, which should have the type specs available to us. Yeah, you can see that this person does it. Right, push scope. Where did we say that this takes it? That's the first argument. So then that doesn't need to happen. Yeah, unfortunately, type specs then also takes it, but I guess that's fine, we don't care. So there's one copy scope call. Okay, that took it. Conflicting types for copy scope. Let's just see what else we're doing. Get type specs, right? Oh, sorry, get type spec. So we're not doing it there. We are doing it there. Interestingly enough, what is this? Path rule string. Ah, right. This is a special thing, isn't it? So push rule, push rule. So maybe that's fine. Because we didn't change get type spec, did we? That's still working as it was. The only thing we've changed is set type spec, which actually calls get type spec. So let's see if it crashes. Doesn't crash. Don't think I saw any difference there either. And yeah, I think that's just working. That's just all fine. So now we're getting our default Patreon setting coming through. We're getting Sendal's icon coming through, and our own URL, which you've had to set. If we don't set that, then we have to do this, and we will just end up without the URL. And everybody else just seems to be looking fine to me, I think. Yeah, I think that's just all bang on, crazily enough. Now where we're calling get type spec again, let's just see. We should, so when we're doing this set, or rather let's see when we do set type spec. So that's after getting the ID, and we sort of just declared that this ID must be set. So whenever we call push scope, this it must have an ID. So there's no way around this. Like, you don't need to check this. And since we've set this, we can fairly come into here. I mean, even this, right? Because I didn't know is 0, so I guess technically you don't even need to do that, do you? Right. And because it's cal-locked, it's just 0 already, so I guess you could just kind of get away without bothering to do that. So yeah, I think we've kind of done what we wanted to do. Yeah, like I say, it's the patron and send out are the new default ones. These set defaults. I think if I ever want to add another one of these guys, you know, this little block down here and this little block here, I think if I ever want to do that again, then I'll just make a little function that kind of does all this stuff. Yeah, return the string directly. Similarly, all these actually. It's like, you know, what you wanted to do here. It's like push. A config. I mean, you could sort of say push config pair. You want to be pushing on an ident query string and this. I wonder if there isn't any reason why that can't just take the individual things already. You know, to save you having to actually parcel them up. Yeah, I don't know. But no, I think that should be sufficient. So what we've done today is we have made the owners non-permeable so that you cannot, so that if you were to do this, you don't inadvertently absorb supports. We've also enabled it to actually seek through its parents for like a full setting of this, so you can retrieve this from somewhere else, and similarly this. And we have set some more defaults basically. We've changed it so the defaults are set on the root scope rather than per project. And I think that's probably about it. About 2 o'clock. I think we've done about 2 hours, have we? just under 2 hours. So yeah, I think we've done a nice amount of stuff there. Tomorrow, or if not tomorrow, Sunday or Monday even, we will then get on with doing I think we'll just do a full lot of stuff on the error messages, which might involve changing the tokenizer to track new lines, you track the line number for the big break. Indeed. I don't know if I'll bother doing the columns. I think it may suffice to just do the lines, but we'll see how it goes. Do we want to set any default stuff? Example numbering scheme. We would push those values on here. No, we wouldn't. We are doing that beforehand. Filling out the title is stuff that's still an ongoing to do. Bear in mind this may not take the config at all. It does need to take the config so they can write the stuff into the actual memory book. I could leave that to do. Climb the tree up to the main config scope and get the owner's information from there. Essentially we need to check that an owner even exists. So yeah, we're not doing that still, are we? Although we are now saying this is if found, no owner set. I think let's just leave this until we're doing the thingamajigs. Oh, I saw the config for depth. Yeah, I could do, couldn't I? 3D files going to finish me think. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean like so this main config here is like depth 0. And then when you go into the config included, it's like depth 1, and it's like you can sort of see it through the main config. Yeah, I don't know. In order to do that, wouldn't I need to be able to do some sort of wouldn't I need to be able to do some transforms? You know, I'd probably want some sort of perspective transforming. Combat text file directory thing. You'd want to visualize it such that it looks plausible as well, wouldn't you? So as things kind of like, from your focal points, you sort of, I don't know, you sort of, do you curve it a little bit? There'd have to be some serious matrix maths going on in there to actually pull that one off. I mean, strangely enough, I mean, I do actually like transparency. It's part of the reason that this whole desktop is actually black, is so that it gives you the illusion of transparency without actually needing to composite it. And like an old desktop environment that I used to use, so I used to use KDE, which is a really, really heavyweight desktop environment. And it might not even be KDE that was responsible for this. I think it might have been Compass that was responsible for the transparency. But you could like, well, the way I had it set up was that you could press Alt and then scroll, and your window would go transparent, so you could then see through it. I don't really have that now. I have one thing that I do can just maybe show this a bit. I have the concept of like when I do Alt and scrolling, you just change the layer. So it's currently on. I've just scrolled it up to the top layer. If I scroll it down, it goes down to the normal. I don't think I can set it to bottom. Can I do that? No, I can't. So I just have it between top and normal. That seems to be sufficient for me. And then if I were to, for example, so this, if I set this to, yeah, if I scroll this to its top, and I try and, so I've got this focus, this one always stays behind it. But if I just set that to normal, then this one can actually then go above. So that's as much as I actually have at the moment. Don't bother going with the transparency situation. But I do find that occasionally handy to do that. And also it's probably worth bearing in mind that this thing up here is on layer desktop. And that means that you if it's on the desktop layer, then you see it on all your workspaces. So you can still see it on the workspace 2, workspace 3. So you can still see all that stuff. Yeah. And also, in terms of transparency, my avatar that I tend to use everywhere, that kind of little blobby thing, that's actually all transparent, right? So as well as the outline being transparent, the actual image itself is transparent. So it's just had all of its black taken out of it. So if it's on a black background, it's displayed as it kind of as it was. Well, it's actually a photograph, so it looks as the photograph was originally looking. But if you put it onto like a different background with like some pattern or just a different colour, it ends up looking different. And that's kind of like intentional. Like I sort of like the idea of kind of like the source background showing through, or the texture of things, or like just kind of it's kind of like the texture of like wood grain. You know, like if you've got a piece of wood, you can like paint it, and you can obliterate the grain in it, or you can paint it and sort of leave some of the grain of it visible. Or of course you can just varnish it, and it's just actually the wood, and you're seeing the grain. The grain is the actual design. I sort of like seeing the grain of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, so it's interactive as well. It's an interactive avatar. Which is what you want, isn't it? That's what you want your avatars to be. You want them to be interactive. Where's my cursor? Planetary, yeah, I was saying leave this until we're doing the errors. Do we need to ascend through multiple generations? Right, loop, let's just leave that. Do we need to warn about incomplete medium information? Do we need to warn about it? I mean, I would suggest that if somebody's going to be configuring this thing, they should also, well, I mean, does it hurt? Does it hurt to warn about it? I suppose it doesn't. In the same way, it didn't hurt to warn about the owner not being set. So I guess, yeah, we could warn. Let's just do, can't see at all what I'm typing here, but it's like config error. That was our search string, wasn't it? What's this to do saying? Warning and error messages, yeah, that's that. Just config error, no insert. See all the, that's there, we just covered that. Merge into Cinera's main seat, yeah. Yeah, there's still this idea, isn't there, about the retaining the validity of pointers. I think we've done enough for now, I think, so let's not bother thinking too hard about that for the moment. This never gets called probably remove. Do we want to handle an unset numbering scheme? In which case we'll need ns null, or we just default to ns linear, and as of today, or yesterday actually, we defaulted to ns linear, so that's dealt with. That strings differ has got a bit of commented out stuff. Current field is in spec. I mean, I presume that commented out stuff is just old news. Oops. Config identifier for strings. Spec field ID equals ID. Strings that differ. Field. So we have got spec ID. We couldn't conceivably match that up with anything, could we? The T token content. No, I think it is just. Yeah, I don't think that's all what we want to be happening. This is more like what we want. We need to permit absorption of the support scope, as well as the wanted edition, basically enforcing that in order to absorb support scope must be written for the person. That's what we did today. Push config watch handle. Yeah. Consider the need for that still. Okay. Yeah. We'll probably be looking at the token types tomorrow actually, when we do the line numbers. Type checking possible. This is in the make strings called make string functions. Okay, so that's it. Alright, let's call it a day. So we've handled the to-dos, and it's just going to be config errors. We're just going to be going through all of these. We're going to be making a function that's basically something to do with config errors, and writing the actual descriptions of the errors. Handle the Unicode. I think I've found before, haven't I, that you just automatically are handling it. Could you give us a Unicode character for me to try? I mean, if we take Martin's Mosaico's name, for example. Because that Martin's name is Unicode, isn't it? Just pull up a semi-private thing. So let's just pretend that Martin's name is this. And let's just say, technically it could be extended ASCII. Right. And let's just say that he's an annotator for Handmade Hero. Yeah, he's coming through. Pretty sure I do need to actually handle Martins as well, by the way. So this isn't a bad thing to try. I mean, they do seem to be wide characters. I don't know if that's any indication of anything at all. Mine's Mosaico is coming through. My font up here doesn't have those characters. So this is at 740. UTF 16. I'm not exactly sure how to read this. I mean, because this is saying that it's Unicode 0.7406, and it's saying that it's UX 7406 in UTF 16. I will be doing, yes, I will be getting onto the next quote marks for a string. Yeah, that is what I'm doing. Oh. Well, it could that affect the line, the column number? I think the line number should be okay. But if I need to be tracking the column number, that could get thrown off, couldn't it? Yeah, because I'm definitely iterating through as bytes. What is Martin's Mosaico here? It's like, so he's saying Latin extended A. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure that I understand what I'm being told here, because this is saying that it's Unicode 0.0101, and this is saying it's that encoding in UTF-16. What's the encode block extended A? Don't do columns, yeah, that's it, isn't it? You just spec the problem around the solution. That might be kind of interesting to look at, actually. Because I don't think I've ever looked at Unicode stuff at all. So I'm going to tell you what. Very last thing we do is just come into this file and just look at Martin's Mosaico. Just see how we handle him. And also let's see how we handle his URL, or his homepage rather. http:// that.com. I mean, clearly URXVT can't handle that, can it? Because it doesn't know to highlight the whole lot. It's actually really easy to understand. I bet you could do it in a day. Although we need to look at the UTF-8 and 16. We could be okay. Cool. So what am I actually going to be looking to here? It's the tokenizations, isn't it? Because that's the only place that I'm actually talking about any of this stuff. So what am I looking at here? The buffer B is the result buffer. There's a comment sequence. So we are going to actually have that, aren't we? So finally we are going to push a token, apparently, are we? Oh right, of course, the token comments. But this doesn't actually push a comment token. So yeah, it does fuck all. So now we should be encountering a person. I suppose actually we could go to the next double quote opening, couldn't we? Yeah, let's just continue to that. So we've got T-type token string. Yeah, so we're looking at Martin's Mosaico here. So we are on that thing, so we should be incrementing past the thingamajig. This dude, double quote. So now looking at Martin's Mosaico. So while that is not that, we're going to be incrementing past. So if it's that, then we do that. So we're incrementing. Mind you, this is already printing out the whole thing, isn't it? So maybe I'd need to somehow get the actual just one character, which would just be the pointer to be pointer, wouldn't it? Yeah, that. So if I just increment that, aha, that's nice. Whereas when you see when it gets all resolved, you see that. Cool. So I assume it's just like, you see if it's in a range of something, and then if it is, you kind of have to treat it as two characters, I guess. And they were still on the same character, but did it increment? It might not have incremented actually. So we're still on the 304. I think we need to do this increment, don't we, to get ourselves past it. So now we're on 201. And we now see this. So yeah, so we've gone past the 304, and we're now on the 201 part of it. That's pretty sweet. Interesting. Yeah, I've never looked into that at all. Nice. Yeah, so that was a cool way to end the stream. Let us, we can let the thing run to completion, can't we? Exit normally. Till next time, yeah, indeed. Farewell for now.